Smoke coiled into the night sky like black ribbons, swallowing the silver light of the moon. The pack house burned, each timber crackling like bones, snapping under the weight of the flames. A girl no older than 10 crouched beneath the shadows of a toppled wall, her small hands drenched in blood. It was not her own. The pulse of a dying wolf had faded beneath her trembling palms only moments ago, and in its place had surged something impossible, something forbidden. She had felt the heat of it leave her skin and pour into him, knitting wounds no healer's herbs could mend. When his chest rose again with breath, her stomach lurched with both relief and terror. She wiped her hands on her torn dress, but the blood clung stubbornly, glowing faintly under the moonlight. Not just blood. Power. Above the wreckage, the moon hung heavy and watching, like an eye carved from ice. Its glow wrapped around her, whispering promises she couldn't understand. She shivered and pressed her forehead to her knees, wishing she could vanish into the dark. "Run," a voice echoed inside her skull, ancient and endless. "Your path begins in shadow. He will find you. He will burn you. He will save you." Tears slipped down her soot-streaked cheeks, but she didn't look up. She didn't dare. Behind her, the screams of her pack rose and fell. The alpha's howl shattered the night, a promise of vengeance that rattled the earth. But the girl was not seen. She was hidden in plain sight, blood on her hands and destiny already coiling its claws into her future. And somewhere in the chaos, a bond she couldn't name was already forming, a bond that would one day destroy her or save her. The flames devoured everything. The moon bore witness, and the girl closed her eyes, unknowingly sealing her fate. Years passed. The fire was only a memory, buried beneath silence and secrecy. She walked now through the quiet halls of the pack infirmary, white nurse's coat wrapped tight around her slim frame, her steps soft as if afraid to disturb the peace. Her name was whispered only in passing Alara. To most, she was just another healer. To herself, she was a ghost hiding in plain sight. The scent of herbs and steel filled the air as she prepared bandages, her movements practiced, calm. But calm shattered the moment the door opened. He entered, Alpha Kalen. His presence filled the room before his body did. Broad shoulders framed in dark leather, eyes the color of storm clouds. Power rolled off him like thunder, and every wolf in the building would have felt it. Yet it was Alara who stiffened, her pulse tripping wildly. He shouldn't look at me, he never does. But his eyes did find hers, unforgiving, sharp. A single glance that seemed to pierce through her borrowed skin, down to the secrets she had spent her life burying. "Where is the report?" His voice was deep, the kind that settled in the chest and lingered long after the sound faded. Alara swallowed. "On your desk, Alpha." He moved closer, each step deliberate. She lowered her gaze, pretending to straighten supplies, pretending she couldn't feel the strange tug inside her chest when he drew near. There was something dangerous in his nearness, something she had never been able to name. The bond, the curse, the thing she must never acknowledge. His beta entered behind him, muttering, "She smells different." Kalen's eyes flicked to her again. A muscle tightened in his jaw. Then, as if dismissing his own instincts, he turned away. For a heartbeat, Alara almost believed she was safe, but she wasn't, because Kalen had caught it. Just the faintest thread of something that didn't belong. Power, the scent of secrets, and though he said nothing, the storm in his gaze promised he would not forget. The room felt too small, her coat too tight, her pulse too loud. Alara turned back to her work, though her hands shook against the bandages. She could feel it. The Alpha knew, not everything, not yet, but enough to begin unraveling the fragile world she had built. The night stretched long in the infirmary, but her thoughts stretched longer. Alara had almost convinced herself the Alpha's gaze had been a passing thing, a flicker of suspicion he would quickly discard. She clung to that hope like a fragile thread, until fate snapped it in her own trembling hands. The next morning, warriors filled the ward after a brutal sparring session. Cuts, bruises, sprains, nothing unusual. She moved among them with steady efficiency, wrapping wrists, cleaning wounds, murmuring soft instructions. Her calmness was a mask she had worn for years, and then he walked in, Alpha Kalen. His presence silenced the room as surely as a command. His warriors straightened, pride in their alpha radiating like heat. Alara's breath caught when she realized she would have to touch him, tend to a shallow wound across his palm. "Sit," she said softly, unable to meet his eyes. Kalen obeyed with a kind of dangerous stillness, every line of his body coiled like a predator waiting for weakness. Alara's fingers brushed his hand only for an instant, and the world shifted. A spark ignited under her skin, racing through her veins. It was heat and fire, ice and lightning all at once. Her heart slammed against her ribs, and she knew, oh, she knew, the mate bond. She tried to pull away, but Kalen's grip closed around her wrist. His eyes darkened, storm clouds tearing open with raw recognition. The silence of the room broke into a hush of murmurs as the warriors realized what had just happened. The alpha had found his mate. For one suspended heartbeat, hope bloomed inside her chest, but it withered as fast as it came when Kalen's lips parted. His words fell like blades, no. He released her hand with deliberate disgust, his voice carrying so every wolf in the ward could hear, "You are not worthy. Whatever bond the moon has spun between us, I reject it." The words struck harder than any blow. Alara's knees almost buckled. Gasps echoed around the room, the warriors staring in shock, some in pity, others in scorn. Her throat burned, but she forced herself to stand tall, to pretend his rejection had not torn open something sacred within her. Kalen rose to his feet, towering over her, his rejection sealed not with a whisper but with the force of an alpha's decree. "You will not claim me, you will not claim this pack. Do your work, nurse, and nothing more." Then he turned his back on her. Her hands trembled as she gathered her supplies, forcing herself not to break. The sting of humiliation pressed into her chest, sharper than any blade. But deep inside, beneath the shame, something ancient stirred. The bond wasn't gone. It throbbed like an ember waiting for air. She didn't know whether it would destroy her, or him. Whispers clung to the infirmary like smoke the next day. Wolves who had seen the rejection carried the tale faster than fire on dry grass. By morning, every corridor hummed with it, how the alpha had found his fated mate, and cast her aside before all. Alara felt the weight of every stare as she moved through the halls. Some looked at her with pity, others with disdain, but all eyes lingered too long. She kept her head bowed, her hands busy, as though bandages and herbs could shield her from the poison of their judgment. But the rejection was not what frightened her most. It was what had happened before. That spark, that pull when she touched Kalen, the power within her had surged dangerously close to the surface. She had hidden it for years, kept it smothered beneath discipline and silence. Yet now, her carefully constructed mask was beginning to crack. Later that evening, a warrior limped into the ward, his leg twisted at an unnatural angle. Alara knelt beside him, masking her trembling hands as she examined the damage. "This will hurt," she warned softly. The moment she touched his skin, her control slipped. A golden warmth spread through her palm, sinking deep into bone. The warrior's eyes widened as his pain dulled, the break knitting far quicker than it should have under mortal care. "Alara," he whispered, awe trembling in his voice. "Say nothing." She hissed, pulling back her hand as if burned. Her breath came ragged, her heart hammering. Around them, others hadn't noticed, too busy with their own chatter. But one pair of sharp eyes had. From across the ward, a tall she-wolf stood watching. Sleek hair, perfect posture, lips curved in something too sharp to be a smile. Selene, the alpha's long-time admirer and the most ambitious wolf in the pack. Alara caught the gleam in her rival's gaze, and her blood turned cold. Selene had seen. The warrior flexed his leg, healed, astonished. "How go?" Alara urged, her voice low and urgent. "Say nothing. Forget this." But she knew he wouldn't forget. None of them would, once whispers began to spread, and Selene would see to it those whispers became daggers. Alone in the dim ward, Alara pressed a hand to her chest, feeling the faint echo of that forbidden power thrumming beneath her skin. Her secret was slipping through her fingers, and in this pack, secrets were more dangerous than blood. The night was heavy with silence, the kind that made even the walls of the infirmary seem to breathe. Alara sat alone at the wash basin, scrubbing her hands long after the stains of blood and herbs were gone. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the water's surface, pale and tired, eyes shadowed with secrets she could no longer bury. But when the half-moon climbed higher in the sky, her reflection shifted, her breath caught. The eyes staring back were no longer soft and human, but glowing, in eerie silver threaded with molten gold. They pulsed with power, alive with something ancient and wild. "No," she whispered, stepping back. The basin rippled as if stirred by invisible hands, and then came the voice. It was not loud, not even spoken aloud, but it filled her skull, soft as silk and sharp as claws. "Child of shadow, daughter of flame, he will break you, he will bind you. The Alpha is both your ruin and your salvation." Alara clutched the counter, knuckles white. The words laced through her veins like poison and promised both. "What do you want from me?" she breathed. The voice did not answer, only faded into the stillness, leaving behind the haunting echo of its prophecy. Her legs weakened beneath her, and she slid to the floor, pressing her hands to her temples. She had always known she was different, cursed with power no wolf should bear. But never had she faced such certainty that the moon itself watched her, spoke to her, tied her fate to the Alpha who had already rejected her. A sharp knock at the door jolted her upright. She shoved to her feet, forcing her trembling limbs to still. It was Selene, draped in silk even at this late hour, her lips curled in cruel amusement. "Working late, nurse." Her gaze swept Alara from head to toe. "Strange, you always seem to be around when the Alpha is." Alara stiffened, heat rushing to her cheeks. "Go home, Selene. You have no reason to be here." "Oh, but I do." Selene stepped closer, her perfume cloying. "I saw what you did today, that little trick with the warrior's leg. You can't hide forever." Alara's heart thudded painfully. Selene leaned in, voice dripping venom. "The Alpha may have rejected you, but when I prove what you are, he'll make sure you're cast out completely." The rival's heels clicked away, leaving Alara in a silence that felt more dangerous than before. Her reflection in the basin still glowed faintly, silver and gold. The moon's warning lingered in her mind. "He will break you. He will bind you." And fate was already closing its jaws. Morning came too quickly, as it always did in the pack house, carrying with it the sharp scent of wet earth, pine, and restless wolves. Alara moved quietly through the corridors of the infirmary, her hands steady but her chest tight. The events of last night, the half-moon's whispered warning, Selene's venomous words, they clung to her like a second skin. She didn't notice him enter at first, Kalen, the Alpha, always silent when he entered, yet commanding as though the air itself obeyed him. His eyes found hers immediately, storm, gray and unreadable, but now carrying a weight that made her pulse hitch. He lingered in the doorway, watching, not approaching, but every instinct she had screamed that he was not here merely to pass the time. Her hands froze over the bandages she was preparing. "She smells different," Kalen murmured to his beta, his voice low enough that only a few could hear. Yet it carried across the infirmary like a shadow, prickling the fur on every wolf's neck. The beta's gaze flicked to Alara, cautious. "Danger, Alpha." Kalen's jaw tightened. "Power, and something else. I can't, yet I feel it." Alara's stomach dropped. He was closer than ever to understanding, not her full secret, not the spark that had flared the other day, but enough to make him wary, enough to ignite curiosity and suspicion in the same glance. He moved among the wounded, keeping a careful distance, yet his eyes never left her. Every subtle twitch of her fingers, every flicker of expression he noticed. She felt exposed, naked under his scrutiny, and the pull in her chest, the same bond that had flared once, beat against her ribs like a caged thing. A wolf coughed nervously nearby, breaking the tension, and Kalen finally turned away. But the look he gave her before leaving burned hotter than the sun through winter fog, a mixture of mistrust, warning, and something darker, something that made her ache. Alara sank against the edge of a table once he was gone, pressing her palms to her face. She had survived rejection, whispers, and exposure, but Kalen's suspicion was different. It was sharp, piercing, and silent, like a blade poised just above her heart. She had to be careful. Every movement, every word, every heartbeat had to hide her secret further, and yet she could not stop the small, dangerous hope flickering in her chest, that somewhere, beyond mistrust and warnings, the Alpha's gaze might also carry something more, something she had longed for without admitting it, even to herself. The tension coiled tighter, and fate, ever patient, began to twist the threads of her life closer to him. The infirmary was quieter than usual, the dim light of late afternoon casting long shadows across the stone floor. Ilara moved quickly, her hands steady but her thoughts scattered. A young wolf had been brought in from the woods, fangs bared in pain, blood streaking his fur. His injury was bad, worse than anything she could treat with ordinary skill alone. "Please, just hold still," she whispered, kneeling beside him. Her fingers hovered over the wound, her pulse hammering with the knowledge of what she could do, and what she shouldn't. The Alpha appeared silently in the doorway. Kaelin's gaze pierced her, and she felt the old tug of the bond flare violently in her chest. His eyes narrowed, suspicion radiating from him like a storm. Ilara swallowed, trying to steady herself. The boy's leg was mangled, his life balanced on the edge. There was no time for hesitation. She touched his skin, and the fire inside her surged. Golden warmth shot through her fingers into the boy's body. Bones mended, muscle knitted, and the faint glow of her hidden power shimmered over her hands. The boy gasped as the pain left him, relief flooding his wide eyes. Kaelin's mouth fell slightly open, his storm, gray eyes darkened with understanding. He had seen everything, Ilara. The Alpha's voice was low, a mixture of disbelief and something more dangerous. What did you just do?" Her hands froze, trembling. Nothing, Alpha. He'll be fine." He stepped closer, and the air between them thickened with unspoken truths. The entire infirmary seemed to hold its breath. Every wolf present could feel the invisible thread connecting them, bonded by the spark that had flared weeks before, but now undeniable in its intensity. Kaelin's gaze softened for a fleeting moment, as if he were fighting between awe and caution. "You're more than a nurse," he said, voice tight, "much more." Ilara's chest ached. Every instinct screamed to flee, to hide what she had done, to disappear like she had so many times before, but she couldn't. The truth had burned through the walls she had built, leaving her exposed, her power betrayed before the Alpha she had long feared and desired, and you knew. She whispered, more to herself than to him. "You always knew." Kaelin's jaw clenched, the weight of what he had seen pressing down on him. He turned abruptly, leaving the infirmary, leaving her alone with the echoes of their shared secret. Ilara sank to the floor, her hands still glowing faintly. She had revealed everything, the spark, the bond, her hidden power, and she knew with a cold certainty that nothing would ever be the same again. The Alpha had seen her, and there was no turning back. The infirmary buzzed with tension the next morning. Rumors traveled faster than wolves ever could. Ilara's power had been revealed. Whispers followed her through every corridor, curling into her ears like smoke, bitter and suffocating. She tried to keep her head down, hands busy, but the weight of the Alpha's scrutiny pressed on her like a storm, and then Selene arrived. The she-wolf's eyes gleamed with triumph, every movement dripping with calculated malice. "So, the great healer shows her true colors," she said, voice dripping with venom. "Did you think you could hide that little trick from everyone, from him?" Ilara's heart froze. Selene had already whispered the story to the pack. Every warrior in the room now looked at her with suspicion, some with fear, some with admiration twisted into resentment. Ilara began, but Selene's sharp laugh cut her off. "You're dangerous," Selene said. "And the Alpha should never have been allowed to touch you." At that moment, Kaelin entered. The entire room fell silent. His presence alone demanded attention, yet his expression was unreadable. Selene stepped forward boldly, speaking loudly enough for every wolf to hear. "Alpha Kaelin, she claims powers no wolf should have. I warn you, she's not to be trusted. She could ensnare you, use you, or worse, she is no mate for you." Kaelin's eyes flicked toward Ilara, and the bond between them pulsed faintly, undeniable. Ilara could feel it vibrating in her chest, a dangerous rhythm that Selene could never see but that Kaelin could. His jaw tightened. "Selene, His voice was cold, cutting enough, but the words weren't meant for her. They were meant to assert control, to deny what even he could not ignore. He turned toward the pack. "Let it be known, my mate is chosen by me, and not by whispers or fear." Then, almost casually, he said, with deliberate cruelty aimed at Alara, "And she is not it." The words landed like ice in her chest. Rejection, public, final. The pack stirred with murmurs, some shocked, some relieved. Alara's knees went weak. Her secret had already endangered her. Now it had humiliated her. Seleni's triumphant smile widened, and she swept from the room, leaving Alara trembling in the aftermath. Yet beneath the sting of humiliation, a small ember of something else burned. The bond had flared, the Alpha had noticed. And despite the rejection, she knew it had not been extinguished. The danger was far from over. And neither was her connection to him. Night had fallen like a velvet shroud over the pack house. The moon hung high and full, casting silver light through the tall windows of the infirmary. Alara worked alone, her hands moving automatically, her mind restless with unease. She could feel it in the air, the tension, the unease, the faint tremor of power in the pack that hinted at danger. Then the door burst open. Wolf stumbled in, carrying Kalen, unconscious and bloodied, his chest rising and falling in shallow, uneven breaths. A rogue attack, a trap laid by an Alpha from a rival territory. Fear clenched Alara's chest, and instinct overrode caution. "No, stay with me, Alpha," she whispered, kneeling beside him. She laid her hands over his wounds, fingers trembling. His life pulsed weakly under her touch, and she knew. Ordinary healing would not be enough. Her golden power surged, hot and wild beneath her skin, but she welcomed it. She poured it into him, into every wound, every shard of broken bone and torn sinew. His body shuddered beneath her hands as she worked, the energy burning against her very core. Kalen groaned, consciousness flickering like a candle in wind. "Alara." His voice rasped, disbelief coloring every syllable. "Yes," she said, soft but firm. "I won't let you die, not like this." A tear slid down her cheek as the last of the wounds sealed, the glow of her power fading into faint, lingering warmth. She stepped back, shaking. Every muscle in her body ached, every heartbeat screaming danger. Kalen's eyes opened fully, storm, gray and wide. He stared at her as if seeing her for the first time, a mixture of awe, fear, and something else, something unspoken. "You saved me," he breathed. Alara swallowed, trying to mask the trembling in her voice. "I told you, I'm just a nurse." His lips curled, a hint of a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "No, you are, more than that." The bond pulsed faintly between them, subtle but undeniable. For the first time, Kalen didn't reject it, didn't push it away. The connection throbbed like a heartbeat in her chest, echoing in his. Outside, the wind howled across the pack house, carrying the whispers of the moon and the distant howls of rival wolves. Alara knew the risk she had taken, breaking the rules, using her powers in defiance of the pack's fears. But as she looked at him, alive because of her, she also knew that some risks were worth taking. Kalen stirred, reaching a tentative hand toward her. His touch hovered, not quite landing, yet burning through the silence with a promise unspoken. And for the first time, Alara allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, the Alpha had begun to see her not as a threat, but as something he could not ignore. The danger was far from over, but neither was the bond that had just begun to blaze. Morning broke with a chill in the air, sharp and unforgiving. Alara moved through the pack house halls, her hands shaking despite her efforts to appear composed. Word of last night's forbidden healing had spread faster than wildfire. Whispers turned into pointed stares, and every wolf she passed seemed to measure her with suspicion, or worse, fear. Selene was already there, her smug expression sharper than any blade. "I see the Alpha survived your miracle," she said, voice laced with venom. "How convenient that he woke under your hands. Are you trying to ensnare him? To take the pack?" Alara pressed her lips together. She had faced rejection, humiliation, and scrutiny before, but this was something different. The entire pack seemed to sense the danger she carried, and they were turning against her, their fear sharpening into judgment. By midday, she was summoned to the council chamber. Chains bit into her wrists as she was brought before the elders and the gathered pack. Every eye was on her, some wide with accusation, others narrowed with suspicion. Her heartbeat pounded like war drums. Kalen stood at the front, silent, his expression unreadable. His silence was a double-edged sword. It shielded her from immediate condemnation, but it also made every murmur and accusation louder, sharper. Selene stepped forward boldly. She wields powers no wolf should have. The rival proclaimed, "She can bend life itself. How can we trust her? She must be a witch, a threat to the Alpha and the pack." The elders murmured among themselves. Chains tightened around Alara's wrists, the cold iron biting into her skin. Her stomach twisted, fear clawing at her chest. The pack's whispers grew louder, almost deafening. Kalen's gaze never left her. Silent, stormy, conflicted, he wanted to defend her, she could feel it, but the weight of duty pressed on him. He could not simply stand against the council, even for her. Not yet. Alara's breath caught. She had hidden so much for so long, endured rejection, humiliation, and now outright accusation. And still, her power throbbed beneath her skin, untamed and alive, the same force that had healed him last night. The council's leader raised a hand, signaling the pack to silence. "We must deliberate," he intoned. "Until then, she remains, restrained." Chains clanked as they tightened, and Alara's gaze met Kalen's one last time. The unspoken tension between them burned hotter than any argument, stronger than any fear. She was trapped, exposed and utterly alone. Yet beneath the fear, a quiet defiance stirred. The bond had flared. The Alpha had seen, and fate was still moving toward her. The full moon hung heavy and luminous over the pack house, painting the world in silver and shadows. Alara sat alone in the infirmary, chains removed but her wrists still tender, her mind racing. She could feel the pulse of the pack outside, restless and wary, yet she could not shake the quiet hum of destiny thrumming beneath her skin. The whispers of the moon returned, soft as silk but sharp as blades. "You are of the lost bloodline, healer of alphas, daughter of moon priestesses. Your path cannot be denied." Alara's fingers brushed her forehead as the words sank in. She had always sensed she was different, that the spark inside her could never be explained. But now the truth shone like moonlight through clouds. Her powers were inherited, sacred, bound to the alphas themselves. A sudden movement in the doorway drew her attention. Kalen stood there, storm, gray eyes narrowed, gaze sharp and piercing, yet softened by an unspoken wonder. He had watched her heal, witnessed her strength, and now he looked at her as if seeing the entirety of her soul for the first time. You're not just a nurse," he murmured, stepping closer. His presence filled the infirmary warm and dangerous, every step vibrating with power and authority. "All this time, I didn't understand, and now I see. You were never meant to hide, not from me, not from anyone." Alara's chest tightened. I didn't choose this," she whispered. "I've only ever tried to survive, to protect what I can. I don't want to hurt anyone." Kalen closed the distance between them, his hand hovering over hers. "No, you've only ever saved, and shown me something I can't ignore. The moon has chosen well." The air between them pulsed with energy, faint sparks of her power mingling with the bond that had flared weeks ago. It was undeniable now, not just a connection, but a destiny entwined between them, ancient and binding. Outside, the pack stirred under the silver glow, yet for this moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them. Alara could feel her pulse syncing with his, her fears and hopes vibrating in tandem with the alpha she had longed for, and feared. "You are my mate," Kalen said finally, not as a declaration to the pack, but to her. Words heavy with promise, authority, and desire. Alira's breath hitched, the truth of her bloodline, her powers, her fate, all collided in that moment with the undeniable pull of the alpha beside her. And beneath the full moon, the threads of prophecy, power, and love began to weave into one unbreakable bond. Her destiny had been revealed, and there was no turning back. The forest outside the pack house was alive with tension. Night had fallen, but it was not peaceful. Rogues from a rival pack had breached the perimeter, their howls cutting through the trees like knives. At their head, a rival alpha, eyes blazing with greed and malice, sought the power Elara carried, the very spark that could heal or destroy. Elara's heart pounded as she ran alongside Kaelin, her hands crackling faintly with the energy that had long remained hidden. The bond between them throbbed, fierce and undeniable, a tether that made every step feel both urgent and destined. "They're fast," Kaelin growled, muscles coiled, eyes scanning the dark. "Stay close to me. Don't let them see fear." Elara nodded, though fear still gnawed at her chest. She had been hunted all her life, for her bloodline, for her powers, but now she faced it alongside the alpha she had longed for, and it made her tremble in ways she could not name. The rogues struck before they could reach safety, a wave of claws and teeth crashing through the underbrush. Elara sprang into action, her hands glowing as she healed Kaelin's minor wounds in real time, her energy flowing between them in seamless synchrony. Kaelin moved like lightning, fangs bared, muscles coiling and releasing with lethal precision. Yet even he could not anticipate the rival alpha's ferocity. The two collided with a thunderous roar, each blow shaking the forest floor. Elara felt the surge of power in the air, a dangerous pull that mirrored the bond flaring between her and Kaelin. She summoned all her strength, directing it into his body, and felt him respond, not just with gratitude, but with a deep, wordless acknowledgement that she was more than healer. She was his mate, his equal, his destiny. The battle reached a fevered pitch. Wolves fell on both sides, the air thick with growls, claws, and the scent of blood. But together, Kaelin and Elara became unstoppable. Her energy bolstered his strikes, healing him faster than he could be harmed, and every rogue who came near felt the overwhelming power of their bond. When the dust finally settled, the rival alpha lay defeated, retreating with his pack into the shadows. Kaelin collapsed beside Elara, chest heaving, eyes wild with both adrenaline and something softer. Something only she could evoke. "You saved me." Again, he whispered, pulling her close. We, Elara corrected, breathless. "We saved each other." Kaelin's lips brushed her temple, a silent promise in the chaos of victory. The bond had been tested, their connection proven not just in whispered glances or stolen touches, but in fire, blood, and battle. And as the forest fell silent once more, the alpha claimed his mate, not with words to the pack, but with the undeniable truth of hearts and destiny intertwined. Dawn broke over the pack house, soft and golden, painting the world in light that made the night's battles feel distant, almost unreal. The forest was quiet, save for the gentle rustle of leaves and the low hum of the pack beginning to stir. Elara stood at the edge of the clearing, her hands still tingling faintly from the surge of power she had shared with Kaelin the night before. The alpha approached, every step measured, deliberate. His eyes met hers, storm, gray softened by awe and longing, and for the first time there was no hesitation, no doubt. The bond between them pulsed visibly, almost like the forest itself recognized them, alive with energy, undeniable and permanent. Kaelin stopped before her, reaching a hand out, trembling ever so slightly. "Elara," he said, voice low, almost reverent, "I have been blind. I allowed whispers and fear to cloud my judgment, to deny what the moon has chosen for us. No longer." Elara's heart leapt. After months of rejection, humiliation, and the ever-present danger of exposure, the alpha was claiming her, not in defiance, not in secrecy, but openly, with all the power and authority of his position. "You are my mate," Kaelin continued, voice firm now, carrying across the clearing so the pack could hear. "Not her, not anyone else. You, and I will not deny it again." A hush fell over the assembled wolves. Some stared in shock, others in awe, but all eyes were on them as Kaelin knelt before Elara, the gesture both alpha and lover, both protector and equal. His hand closed around hers, warmth radiating into her palm, grounding her, binding her to him in ways both mystical and tangible. Tears welled in Elara's eyes. She had endured rejection, exposure, danger, and betrayal. She had hidden her power, survived the pack's scrutiny, and faced the alpha's cold dismissal. And now, in the golden light of dawn, she was recognized, chosen, and accepted. Kaelin's lips brushed hers, soft but commanding, a promise of protection, love, and destiny fulfilled. The bond thrummed between them, steady and unbroken, a perfect balance of fire and light. The pack stirred, murmurs of approval rippling through the trees. Even Selene fell silent, defeated by the undeniable truth of the bond and the Alpha's declaration. Alara felt the weight of prophecy lift, replaced by a warm certainty. She was no longer a hidden healer, a secret wielder of forbidden powers, or a rejected mate. She was Luna, Alpha Kalen's mate, and her destiny was fully claimed. The sun rose higher, casting long shadows behind them, but they stepped forward together, unafraid, united. The trials were over. The battles had been fought, and at last love, and fate, had found its rightful place.